Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Ten Quick Talk podcast. If you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it's the best way to support the channel is to get our numbers up in the subscriber count. So let's make sure that you're subscribed, share with a friend, and let's dive right into today's video. Moving to our first Spring X Factor from the University of Indiana, very interesting team this year. Wide receiver Donovan McCulley, whoever is the starting quarterback for Indiana, be it Curtis Rourke or Brendan Sorsby, that QB will need a baller on the outside, and Indiana is extremely grateful that the junior McCulley comes back instead of declaring for the NFL draft, and he needs to establish that connection with whoever's the starting quarterback for Indiana to have a fighting chance this season. Moving to USC, I have defensive coordinator D'Anton Lynn. We all know that a Lincoln Riley offense will play up to an elite status, but the defense is the key for USC being a national championship contender this season. And the defense, if the defense can just be just average to above average, then they will be that playoff contender by the end of the season. So D'Anton Lynn, which by the way I think is a great hire, needs to have a great spring and summer to get this USC defense back from the lows that they were at before. Next on the list is Iowa offensive coordinator Tim Lester. The former Western Michigan head coach will have to basically start from scratch with this putrid offense, and he will need to have a great spring and summer in order to get any offense at all out of this Iowa offense. Now, we know that Iowa returns Cade McNamara, some offensive linemen. Honestly, you can't get much lower than their wide receiver room. It was pretty bad last year. And one of the keys for Iowa, they need to just get, if they get any offense at all, like I said, they will be a great team, because you think of what they've had these last couple years, which is zero offense, and yet they still end up winning 9-10 games. Yes, their schedule does get a little bit harder this year, eliminating divisions. So if Iowa can just ramp up the offense a little bit, that'll make them really good. Next on the list is Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Howard transferred in from Kansas State. Howard has not looked like the elite quarterback that he looked like he was at Kansas State at all to start his time at Ohio State, seeing as how he hasn't even gotten past the incumbent Devin Brown or really any of the other quarterbacks on the roster, such as Julian Sayin, Aaron Nolan. So he needs to prioritize winning the quarterback job with authority in order to get his wonderful playmakers the ball. And when you do Ohio State, you always have to follow it up with Michigan or vice versa, right? So quarterback Alex Orji is my X factor for Michigan. The defense is largely set for the Wolverines. Obviously, losing Rod Moore is a travesty. But besides the point there, but in order for Michigan to make the playoffs and to continue to be elite, they need great quarterback play since they lost a pretty good one in J.J. McCarthy. Orji is a quarterback who will be stepping into the spotlight for the first time in a couple years at least after sitting behind McCarthy, and he needs to set the tone early in the spring so that he can make the transition between a high draft pick in McCarthy to himself. Next, we have Maryland head coach Mike Locksley. Locksley is under a lot of pressure now to win without his NFL quarterback Talia Tagovailoa. Maryland has the schedule for him to succeed, as the hardest teams Maryland plays are at both Oregon and Penn State. Not bad for the teams that are in a very deep Big Ten. Therefore, because of this, there's even more pressure for Mike Locksley to succeed, because there's no reason for him not to succeed at this point in time. Yet, he has to figure out his quarterback situation, and he has to win. There are no excuses left for him not to win. And next on the list, we have Illinois head coach Brett Bielema. It wasn't very long ago that Illinois had several NFL players on their roster, and they had 8 wins, which was a pretty good season. It feels like that was a real long time ago, and it really wasn't, because it was in the year 2022. Brett Bielema, after laying another dud season on his 3-year Illinois resume, needs to win now in order to continue to be the head coach at Illinois. Otherwise, he's going to be out if he lays another dud. His only good season, that 8-win season, was in 2022, and his other 2 seasons were a 4 or 5-win season. So if he puts up another dud, like 4 or 5-win season, he's going to be out. Moving to UCLA, and our 3rd head coach in a row, head coach Deshaun Foster. Coach Foster has to get this roster ship-shape in a short amount of time, really. This was not the greatest roster to begin with, and Foster is going to have to work overtime in the spring for this UCLA team to be competitive and functional this upcoming year. Up next, we have The Washington wide receiver room. This room brings back 0 starters with 0 playing experience. They lost a boatload of NFL talent in Rome Odunze, who will be taken probably as a top 10 pick. Jalen McMillan, probably in the mid-second round, and Jalen Polk, probably around the 3rd round. And the next man up in Jeremy Bernard also left. The 2024 receiver room needs to grow up fast, and what better way to do that but in spring ball. Moving to the Purdue head coach, Ryan Walters, I really wasn't the biggest fan of this hire, and I had many questions heading into the 2023 season. Needless to say, my questions were justified now after a 4-8 season where not a lot of promise was shown. However, Walters needs to prove in his second season as the Purdue head coach, and if the results don't come back positive at all this upcoming season, Walters could find himself out of a job. This spring, it is imperative that Walters needs to figure out how to run his pseudo air raid offense, otherwise they are toast in a very deep Big Ten. Moving to Michigan State quarterback Aiden Childs. By the end of the season, Childs could be a top 5 Big Ten quarterback as he possesses all the traits to be a top 5 Big Ten quarterback, such as a great dual threat, athletic freak, live arm, etc. Traits that you see out of J.J. McCarthy, traits that you saw out of C.J. Stroud at Ohio State when he was there. And Michigan State really needs this guy to succeed if they are to succeed in this season. They don't have the most talented roster. They have talented players. They don't have the most talented roster. So they need Aiden Childs to really shine out. And in the spring, building that chemistry with the wide receivers and your offensive line will do wonders in succeeding. And now we move to Nebraska. For Nebraska, I'm going to say the whole running back room. This is one of the most interesting rooms in the Big Ten. They have Gabe Ervin, a gym monster, just a physical freak, looked great through the first couple of games of the 2023 season, then tore his ACL. Ramir Johnson, great out of the backfield, pass catcher, third down back, a kind of a do-it-all Swiss Army knife type of guy, runs wheel routes, all sorts of that. Again, had a promising start to the 2023 campaign, tore his ACL, same game as Gabe Ervin. Then there was Anthony Grant, who was very underwhelming as a fifth-year senior. Then the last running back, true freshman Emmett Johnson, carried the bulk of the load after the early injuries and proved as a teenager that he's one of the better running backs in the Big Ten. So this spring, you retain Gabe Ervin, Ramir Johnson, and Emmett Johnson, lose Anthony Grant, and gain a talented running back, Dante Dowdle, a transfer from Oregon, who is really up there at Gabe Ervin's level, a stud. So this group needs a couple of players to really stand out in the spring, big time, in order to get this chaos of this running back room in order. Next, Oregon corner Jabbar Muhammad. Muhammad was one of the hottest commodities in the transfer portal after a good season with Washington going to the national championship, but Oregon needs him to take a step into the elite level in order that their secondary can have a chance to lock down this season, and the Big Ten has some great wide receiver rooms, some great air raid offenses, so they need Jabbar Muhammad to really take that step into the elite, and taking that step comes in the spring and summer. For Northwestern, we have the whole quarterback room. The big question for the Wildcats this spring is who will be the starter come fall. It could be Brendan Sullivan, Ryan Helinski, or Ben Bryant. Personally, I think Ben Bryant gives them the best chance to win, but it's anyone's job right now. And that's what the spring and summer is for, and it needs to be settled this spring in order for them to have a good season come fall. Moving to Minnesota QB Max Brosmer. Brosmer is a 6-year senior who played and starred at New Hampshire, where that is an FCS level school, where he threw for 3,464 yards and 29 total touchdowns. Big Ten defenses are a completely different story than FCS's defenses, so Brosmer, assuming he is given QB1 status, which he probably will because there's no really other good quarterbacks on the roster, he needs to get quickly acclimated to Big Ten defenses in order to succeed in any fashion at Minnesota. Next on the list, we have Rutgers quarterback room. This might be one of the most intriguing spring battles to watch between the incumbent quarterback Gavin Wimsatt, an elite runner, but poor to very bad passer, and the incoming transfer Ethan Kaliakmanis from Minnesota, who has the potential to be a great passer, but isn't the greatest runner. I really look forward to seeing who wins this battle, and I think Gavin Wimsatt fits their scheme a little bit more, but again, he was terrible passing last year, so Kaliakmanis, probably a better passer. Maybe they play both, but this needs to be established who's going to start here in the spring. Moving to the Wisconsin running back Chez Mellusi. Chez played great last year when he was healthy in his role as backup to Braylon Allen. And this year he presumably has the running back status. He has the inside track to being that RB1. But he still has to win the job because when redshirt sophomore Jackson Aker played, he showed some great promise. He looked like an elite running back when he was out there, that burst of speed. Also, the fact that Wisconsin added Towee Jackson from Oklahoma, a transfer. Both of these guys could definitely challenge for this top spot, so Chez Mellusi needs a breakout spring to solidify his running back one status come fall. And last but certainly not least on our list here, Penn State quarterback Drew Aller. Aller is under immense pressure to win this season, seeing as how he was one of the most highly rated quarterbacks in program history to come in, and he has not lived up to the hype of a generational talent like he was projected to be, playing embarrassingly bad versus top teams such as Ohio State, Michigan, and Ole Miss in the bowl game just last year. Yet, I'm not going to fault him as much as I would a senior because Aller was only a sophomore last year. This year, going into his junior year, however, he has no room for error. He has a better wide receiver room with incumbent Keandre Lambert-Smith returning, and they swiped Julian Fleming from Ohio State. This is Aller's year, and he has to live up to it. And what a better way to start, but start here in the spring with a great spring. And with that, we round out our Spring X Factors list. Of course, there is plenty of position groups and position battles to watch over every single Big Ten team, but I can't cover all of it, so I focused on some of the main position battles or player to watch, or coach in this case, to watch through spring ball and into summer ball. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Like the video if you liked it. Comment a position group on your team that you think needed to be covered. And I love interacting with you guys in the comments, so that's fun to see. Subscribe. The best way to support the channel is to subscribe. We're really running up the subscriber count, so let's continue to do that. Going up, and I'll see you guys in the next one.